Are you looking for an afternoon boost to support you until the children go to bed or to get through that evening meeting? Why not reach for a cup of ceremonial cacao? It will boost your energy, reduce your inflammation, and also allow you to go to sleep at a decent hour. For more information on how to grab your ceremonial cacao, check out the link in the show notes for 10% off.
Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Crestani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I'm joined by the lovely Stacy Hernandez. So from an early age, she witnessed her mother's connection with their ancestors. At the time, she assumed this was simply a part of life and set the gift aside. As she got deeper into energy work, she began to recognize the significance of ancestral connection and now fully embraces this gift, stepping into her role as a communicator with the ancestors and a vessel for healing. Today, Stacy specializes in ancestral and multidimensional energy healing and serves as the facilitator of Lightbody Academy. She embodies expanded awareness to track and dissolve inherited trauma, energetic blocks, and unconscious beliefs held within the lineage. Through one-on-one sessions and teaching energy tracking, she supports others in reclaiming their sovereignty, awakening spiritually, and remembering the truth of who they really are. So a big welcome to the show, Stacy.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I guess growing up in a household where your mother just naturally did that, but then you put your gifts aside, were you kind of kicking yourself in the moment?
You know, it's crazy because it's like, it wasn't really until, so I'm 50 now, right? And in my 40s, I really was like, this was like, I can't believe like this was happening, right? I didn't realize what was happening. And so if I embraced it growing up, right, I would have had these automatic guides to communicate with throughout in a way that I would have really probably made other, different choices. I would have made certain different choices in life because my mom was connected with them as guides, and she still does to this day. And often, yes, I always knew my ancestors are always with me, always. Like it was just, but I wasn't like honoring the practice of connecting, often. And I stayed in kind of disconnection with it until a lot later. And once I did realize, oh my gosh, like I was lucky that I had inherited this amazing connection. And it really has been kind of a game changer in my life, in how I connect with my intuition and the choices I make. I feel like I'm so guided,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes when you're coming back into something that you shut off, I want to say it can be really challenging to trust, because that's the point I'm at, where it's just this trust. It's like, no, that's not what's going to happen. This is how it's going to play out. And you just have to wait. And then you go, look, there it is. Thank you. I understand now.
That trust thing, and it comes in so many layers, right? Because we inherited the distrust from our people. I mean, really, like if I track through distrust in both my mother's and father's side, and I really track, I'm like, oh my gosh, it really plays out, right? I even know when I came into this life, when I chose the parents I chose, I knew I was going to have this certain relationship with trust that I had to work out and get to a new place within it, come into a new relationship with it. But it's like we inherited from our ancestors. I believe in past lives, right? So we inherited that stuff from our lifetimes that we've lived, and also living in the collective we live in. We're all around this umbrella of distrust. So yeah, it's hard to come into right relationship with trust, for sure. One of the things that I've learned with this distrust piece, going into my lineages to see where trust has really showed up and where it really became manipulated or warped or disconnected, that has been amazing, not only in trusting myself, but in my relationship, especially with my husband and my children.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, whoa, I'm making choices, or I'm speaking to him in terms of me not trusting him. Or with the children, like they're young adults now, and they're learning to adult. They're going through that adulting thing. And I'm like, whoa, I'm really not trusting them. to just figure it out on their own. And is it because I don't trust them, or is it because I inherited this, or is it because I don't trust the collective? What is this? So that's a really important thing that you just brought up around trust.
Yeah, and there's so many layers. So trust, like you said, there's so many broken incidences of trust. And even then we break trust with ourselves so often and give ourselves, like, just think that that's okay. Like when you promise yourself, I'm going to do this, and then you don't, then you're completely dishonoring yourself. And then that's going to keep flowing out in your life because you're not trusting yourself. So who else can trust you? You know, and then this is often where it flows through. It's like, why are you going to have clients come to you if you can't even trust yourself at that level that you promised yourself you would exercise today, and then you just made all the excuses not to do it and self-sabotage in the process? So, you know, and I understand too when you're saying about past lives and the trust there, I was like, oh, I can so see how being spiritual my trust was broken multiple times every lifetime, you know? So, yes.
And then look at your mother and father's lines, right? And all that they had to go through, your people way back, and those trust levels that got, you know, that got violated or broken in different ways, all the way up until this lifetime. And as you said, we do this to ourselves, but we inherited a lot of that too.
Yeah. What a journey of healing there.
What?
And just lifting, you know, everyone talks about that whole lifting the veil, but people don't understand what that actually means. It's like letting all those beliefs go so that you can step into what is left underneath, which is who you actually are at a soul level.
I feel like, I don't know about you, but as we're shifting into this new paradigm, right? This new earth, and people call it different things, that is the core. That's where we're getting to, is the know thyself. That is where we're headed. And, you know, it was interesting because I got myself I would say a couple weeks ago, I was really attached to that, right? Like thinking it still in a duality mindset where I'm like, I am getting there. I'm getting there and I'm going to know myself fully. And then I got reminded, because I was working with the healer on some stuff. And he's like, you're never going to get there to fully know yourself. It is always a journey. It's always a journey. And it's like, whoa, okay, that kind of left me off the hook in some ways, because maybe I will, maybe I won't, right? But I'm loving the journey of discovering it. At times it's freaking hard. It's really hard at times.
Yeah. And then you get to the other side of it. So when you're in the thick of it, you kind of are like, oh my goodness, like, spirit, what is going on here? You know, like, truly, what are you doing? And then for us, like last week, we got some information. And I was like, well played, spirit. Well played.
I love the humor.
I know. I was like, it suddenly all makes sense. But if we don't laugh about it and we don't let it, you know, instead of sitting there in that victim mindset of like, oh no, you know, like, why would this happen to me? And blah, 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 blah. That is one of the most disempowering thought cycles I find that you get stuck into. And that is really what blocks you from returning to you, because you're constantly looking for someone outside you to blame all the time.
Yes, that drives me crazy. That's one of my pet peeves, that victimhood piece, you know. Because I see it in myself, right? Obviously, I see it in my young adult children who like to play that game, you know, and so it hits, you know, that one can hit. But it's true. I mean, but most of us were not taught, or we inherited certain beliefs and perspectives that include a victimhood kind of energy, you know, to be that as well. So yeah, it's very interesting. I love the humor piece that you brought up though around it. Just to be able to ride the waves, right? Like ride the waves instead of being like, oh, this has happened to me. Well,
yeah. And it's really interesting because my little human, he has this tendency to want to blame somebody for everything. And I was like, where does this even come from? And my guides were like, that's actually one of his lessons this lifetime, to learn to take responsibility. And I try and show him like and half the time it's himself. And that is when the blaming comes out. So he'll create a situation and then all these repercussions come from that. And I said, stop blaming everybody or everything. The only thing that caused this was your action that you took, and you knew better. And I said, this is why you're stuck in this loop. And he's like, and then he'll get really angry, and then he'll go away, and then he'll come back, and then I'll get a hug because he's like, yes, I get it. But it's really interesting just trying to contrast that because I was like, where is this blaming attitude come from? And I just heard ancestral. I was like, oh, okay, all right. I was like, can I heal this? Nope. It's like, it's not you.
Oh, that's a huge one. Discerning the energy of what we can heal and what we can't. That's so big.
Yeah. And I feel that's such a big thing for everybody because we're all empathic on some level, and people
Yes.
like to deny it. But, when I started my spiritual journey, I looked into medical intuition. And when I was doing the course, the best thing I learned was actually how to discern what was my pain versus somebody else's, and how to shut off feeling everyone else's pain. Because I used to go to parties when I was younger, when I was at university and everything, and everyone would be drinking, and I'd have one drink and I'd feel so sick. And I'm like, was it the food? Was it the drink? Was something, but it wasn't. I was feeling everybody else, and it was manifesting this physical pain in my body. And it was only like years and years later where I had that discernment, and it came in again. And I was like, hang on, is this even mine? And then I got, no. I was like, oh, wow. And, even feelings, especially we were talking about the collective, there's been these big shifts in energy and things like that. Is this my feeling? Is this someone I know's? Is this the collective's? Do I need to do anything with it? That's the other part.
That's huge. That's spiritual maturity right there. Because it's really that discernment of what we need to do with it and what we don't is so huge. We don't always need to find the source, right? But when we do need to find the source, in that discernment of our own intuition and discerning what we need to do and not, when we discern it, we realize, oh my gosh, this is from an ancestor that's been many, many, many generations before. What do I do with this? That's when you can really start to track the energy to connect with that ancestor to say, all right, it's time to pull this out. This is not mine. I am acting like this is mine, but this is not mine. This does not come from me, but I have taken it on as it is my own.
It's so interesting you bring up that, because I was going through like an ancestral timeline. I was going through, I think, the mother line. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I was going through a line.
Yeah. Yes.
And I got to this point because I'll just pull in each soul and go, thank you, I love you, thank you. Like kind of do the Ho'oponopono. And then when I get to a block, I go, what do you need me to see? Or what do you need me to hear? And I find that that's how I figure out what the pattern is. But years ago, I was doing this. And basically this female in this lineage, they wanted her to marry this man she didn't love. And she ran off and she actually married the man she did love. And they were so happy. They were living a beautiful life. And the family came and dragged her back and took her back. Yeah. And she actually died incredibly depressed and miserable because they somehow annulled their marriage and made her marry this other thing because of status and everything. But it was actually almost playing out in my life where I'd divorced my ex and met my new husband, and my family weren't accepting of them. And then when that shifted, it was really interesting how it came out the other side, because that was let go. And then things started to shift in our dynamics to the point that I don't even think my family remember that period. So, which is interesting because it just shows you how well you can reprint the matrix when you let these things go. So to the point that my husband went, when these events started to shift immensely, my husband's like, did we go into another dimension or timeline? And I was like, they're my words, babe. I was like, but that's how I feel.
That is. You are so right on about how much this energy work, when we really tap into these things, how much it really does feel like a complete shift.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just you kind of show up in a new way and you don't reflect those old patterns anymore.
No. And it's like they didn't exist. And people find they cling on so hard to the past, but the past is just the past. It's just, and it's such a tricky thing to move forward from when people are constantly, going back and living in that space.
Yeah. But in this new way of being, right, this new paradigm, This is what's getting revealed, are the ways we're really still living in those old ways that are just don't serve us anymore. So what we're experiencing is, oh, wow, we're seeing how these patterns are really playing out. And what you just did is you completely disrupted the entire lineage for your children, future generations, going all the way through the older generations. You really reset in a whole new way of being with this kind of relationship to this energy. So, I mean, good for you to acknowledge that, to see that, and to be able to work it, because it is making such a difference. What I think a lot of people are afraid of is coming into new patterns because it's so unknown. It's so unknown. But we are walking. I describe this to clients. We are walking off the edge right now, and there is no foundation left. All that how we used to behave, how we used to live, how we used to be, all of that is getting dismantled, disrupted. And we are walking off this ledge, and we are having trust, as we've been talking about, and pure faith in ourselves and whatever we want to believe in, and connect with. And as we wander off that cliff, it's really like that fire horse go time into really seeing who we are, what we want, and taking those leaps, taking those steps forward, and being very, 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 very uncomfortable right now.
Yep. Yes, 100%. And I feel a lot of people underestimate the impact of ancestral healing and
Yes.
how much it does change both ways. I know they talk about 7 generations past and 7 generations forward, but apparently that's all they can measure. That's why it's 7, which is
Yes.
really interesting.
Yes. Well, that's also the multidimensional way, right? With the multidimensional piece to all of this, what the ripples are profound, because it could go through your blood lineage all the way to your starseed origins, all the way back to planetary origins, all the way to earth-based origins, elemental realm. You don't know the vastness of the shift that you have and how it impacts, let's say, the multidimensional collective of it all. It's not just the human experience that we are cleaning up and healing. We are reawakening to those levels that humans were able to connect with. And when we were able to communicate with the trees, right? When we were able to listen to what the plants were telling us, when we saw the fairies hanging out with the plants, when we did, like those kind of levels are awakening. And I don't know about you, I bet you have seen this a lot. There are people who are just everyday regular people who are now, because their psychic abilities have just automatically just dropped in and come online. I'm seeing this over and over again with clients right now. They're like, what they see and what they experience, it's like a whole new way of being, but it is the old way of being, because we used to have these abilities normally.
Yes. And then when they got shut down, this is like people don't realize we used to be able to see Pegasus in the sky. Like, no worries. Like, oh yeah, we can talk to the gods today. We'll just go outside and they'll appear. Like
That's right.
And I love that you bring up that contrast, that it is this shift that's happening, because, people go, oh, but I'm just one person. Exactly. You're just one person. And you don't know who your light is spreading to. You don't know who is watching you. You don't know who is following you. You don't know who is listening in the background and something's sinking in, and, this is why you sprinkle lots of seeds and you just see what grows sometimes, because you never know. You might just say one tiny thing to somebody and might change their complete trajectory, because it's just enough to plant that seed and allow it to grow.
So true. So true. One thing also with this multidimensional perspective, as you said, this like collective contribution we're having, right, from doing our own work, we have to understand that the ancestry piece is not just our bloodline. It's if we've had past lives, it's all of the ancestry of those lifetimes, right? Also, if we are the vastness of who we are, that includes a oneness of being, let's say, a part of the animal kingdom, part of the plant kingdom, part of, let's say the elemental realm, or we've been other things besides human form in lifetimes, then we have all of that too. So our ancestry may be Sasquatch, our ancestry may be trees, our ancestry may be, there's, and this is out there concepts, but a lot of people are really coming back into that truth for them of knowing, like, I know I have been in the stars, right? I know I have been in the earth. I know I am more than just this human body.
Yes, 100%. And you can suddenly start to have different conversations with people. Like, I've been talking more about galactics with people, and my husband's like, people are going to think you're crazy. I'm like, you're saying that, but people are more receptive than you think.
Yes.
And it's almost like you're just planting a seed there. And sometimes it does trigger people and they're like, oh, I can't handle this. But it's enough to just sprinkle that seed and just to move forward. Because if you're listening to this and you're a human and you still think we're the only planet in this only species in this universe, get out of your ego.
Yeah, right? Because we're beyond this physicality, for
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
For people who are curious about ancestral healing, do you have any tips of where they can start?
Yeah, great question. Wonderful question. And so first of all, let's start with switching a mindset, right? That they're separate from us. That start alone. And this is where, again, the upbringing piece, because the way I was raised is that our people are always with us, always around us. We can connect with them at any time. So I don't need to light a candle. I don't need to have an altar. I wasn't raised that way. I was raised that if I want to connect with my grandma, I just call my grandma in. I just set an intention for grandma to come, and she comes and I can hang out with her and talk to her. Or grandma's walking around the house with us, or whatever it is. So setting a different mindset around separation is a big one. And that's a big awakening we're having. We are not separate from anything. So starting with your mindset of knowing that if you want that connection with your ancestors, the intention setting is everything. So setting the intention to connect in any way you'd like to connect without an expectation of what it's going to look like, because everyone has different intuitive language. Some people see, some people hear, some people know, some people, like whatever your intuitive language is, the data sets you get are what you get. I work with one client who her intuitive language is all physical sensations. And when we go into, oh, my elbow hurts, we go into and tracking that energy and we see, oh, we can go deeper into it and find where that is really coming from. And that takes us places. Some people see, some people know. So starting with the mindset piece and setting the intention to know that your ancestors are always with you is number one. The next step is, when you're really setting that intention, go into your heart. Bring your awareness back in your body first. Bring that awareness. You pull your awareness behind your eyes back in and sink into your heart and set the intention to really connect without expectation. And you're seeing the subtleties of what presents, because there are so many messages around, right? And the subtlety may be a thought that comes through. It may be the wind. It may be a bird. It may be something, but we have to get out of the limitations of our ego driver when we're in this, let's say, connecting in the spirit realm, right? Connecting with the ancestral realm. But I call it spirit realm because the ancestors are a part of that. So as we connect in our hearts and really start to set that intention, then we can really start to see what develops. You can start asking questions. You can start to see. The other day, there's a behavior that one of my daughters are going through. And I was like, where is this coming from? Because when I tune into her heart, this is not who she is. Right. So I was like, I did this. I got behind my eyes, got into my heart. I set the intention. I started to connect. And as I was like, where is this behavior really from? Is this hers? Is this a lifetime, some lifetimes? Is this whatever? And all of a sudden, a grandfather came in. One of my grandfathers came in. And I was like, okay. And then I started connecting with my grandfather. And I'm like, okay, why are you here? And he showed me she gets this behavior from me. And then I got that behavior from him. But you know what I'm saying? And I was like, oh my gosh, this was a super quiet grandpa that was never expressed anything. We would not know his inner thoughts, right? We wouldn't know what he was really going through. And he showed me how he was always in this pattern, always in this behavior. And I'm like, did you get this from anyone else? And he said, no, it started with me. And it was because certain things happened with his parents that created feeling unsafe. And that, as I was able to go into it, I saw a couple of his lifetimes where I could see some where that could have also been a pattern too, where it got exacerbated. Not just because if you think about his parents, it's like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, losing your home, that's like a big deal, but not enough to really make someone feel unsafe. Maybe. I mean, you can. That's a big energy for a lot of people. But then I also saw his lifetimes. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a lot. There's a lot here. And so he felt it because he was trained and inherited culturally. You got to hold it all in. I'll be the stoic, strong man. And so then I saw how he passed that down. So it's very interesting, and others didn't adopt it. We come from a very big family, and it's like, okay, others didn't adopt it. Some did, some didn't. So it's very interesting how the frequency match too of who inherited the patterns and who didn't.
Yeah.
So that was all through intention setting to connect.
Yeah, which is such a beautiful example. But I feel that you bring up an important point too, is that it depends what the soul's contracts are, right? Coming into the lifetime and what frequencies they want to take on and what they want to cancel.
Yes.
That's my favorite one. Cancel. We're canceling that. Thank you very much. We are done. We are done.
We're done.
We are done. And it's interesting too, because the energy is allowing us to move through it that quickly. It's like, okay, I figured out what it is. I'll feel that. I'll observe it. I'll accept it. I'll give gratitude, but then it's gone. We are done.
Yes.
And it is that quick. Like when you figure it out, it is that quick. You still have your wounds and your shadows that hang around. You got to befriend them and make, nice with them because that's just part of you. But at the same time, when you have these belief patterns, they don't need to stay anymore. They can go just as quickly.
So true. So true. That is exactly what I'm seeing with so many right now, and how quickly things can be when it's aligned. Now there may be some other layers underneath that pop up later. So we can never, again, I always tell people, don't be attached to an outcome because we never know. But there is profound shifting that is happening to the point where we are seeing like things get completely eliminated and they're just not. But the things that do repeat, it's like, yeah, we're clearing it, but there is deeper levels that could not be revealed until we revealed this level or this layer, right? Then underneath, there's more awareness. There's more clarification. There's more that gives us an understanding of what to clear. So yeah, it's very interesting work that we're doing right now.
It's an interesting time to have our popcorn out and be alive.
Yes, it is exciting, isn't it? In a lot of ways, it really is exciting, as challenging as it can be.
Exactly, as challenging as it can be. And I know the other thing that you teach a lot of people about, Stacy, is when loved ones pass, and they move. And I've worked a lot with my clients because we have to dismantle all the religious beliefs that come around what happens to a soul once they pass. And, I've had clients say, oh, but like my family's saying I have to get rid of all their possessions. I'm like, no, why do you have to do that? Oh, apparently it keeps them trapped and puts them in purgatory. And I was like, no. I said, they're definitely fine. Like I'm staring at them right now. It's, or I know I learned when I started studying shamanism about how they're actually doing the last rites actually traps the soul in and makes it harder for it to come out. You have to release the soul before that happens, all these sorts of things. What is your take on that?
That is such a great question, because I do death rites, and why people are attracted to death rites and what I see often with death rites is all of that's getting dismantled. And it's very interesting work because death rites are different than last rites. That's a religious structure. Death rites are working on a soul level to see what the soul is still harboring, holding onto, attached to, that is preventing them from their soul fully transitioning into whatever the next thing is, whether it's coming back into another lifetime or whether they're done and they're in the light and they're doing whatever, right? What I have realized, first of all, from death rites is that the attachment to knowing what happens to our loved ones is just a way for us to heal, right? For us to feel better about the loss, because whatever happens, happens. And often now, to what I have seen in death rites, is we don't always know what the answer is of what's going to happen next. And I also truly believe why we're not getting that clearly is because we are in a new paradigm. Everything is shifting. Every way of being is different. And we are coming into what that's going to look like. And so we don't need to know and have to know. And the ego driver, it's not liberating to the ego driver to know. We have to be in the vastness of whatever is possible always right now. So in the death rites, and what and gosh, I just did a very long one this past weekend, and it was beautiful because there were a few family members there. And the woman who had passed was holding on to certain things, first of all, that she didn't tell her children that needed to be said. She had to clear out certain things in grandchildren that were holding. She was concerned about certain things getting cleared up in them so she could transition. There's certain things that she had to clear and we had to clear in herself. And there was certain family dynamics that had to be kind of like cleared so she could transition. And that work is super powerful, because when you do a death rites where you are really connecting with what's ready to go and what's ready to be released, often you're clearing the whole lineage when you're doing it. It's not just the person who's transitioning. We are cleaning up the loved ones that are still alive. We're cleaning up the generations. We're cleaning up so much that it's fascinating work. But it's very interesting because a lot of it is like programming, and whatever is stuck. And if it's a parent, and I'll say I've cleared people that passed 20 years ago, cleared people who passed a couple weeks ago. We've done, like, death rites now can be at any level. It doesn't have to be like you have to do this or you have to do it at this time. The vastness of the energies we are in is there's no restrictions. We are just in possibility. And as you said, it doesn't have to be that X, Y, and Z way anymore.
No, because time's a construct, right?
Yes. Yes. That is another thing we're breaking out of, is linear time.
And I love that you brought up that point, because a few years ago, my grandfather passed, but I had a dream. It was almost a year before he passed, actually. And he actually died in my dream. But I just knew intuitively what to do to release his soul. It was crazy. And then I read a book like a few weeks later, and it was exactly what it was, right? And I was like, oh, I love this. This is synchronicities, right? But that day I rang up my dad and I was like, is he okay? And he's like, yeah, what happened? And I said, well, this is what happened, to a point in my dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he goes, no, he's actually been the most lucid he's been and real happy this morning. I went, interesting, very interesting, because there was a fear around dying, right? Because of the Catholic belief. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We grew up with that too.
Yeah.
Same religion.
And then I went, I think the Easter after that. So it would have been several months after. And he just wasn't there. Like, it wasn't him. Like, he was halfway out. And my guides were like, do it to him now. Do the ritual to him now. Release his chakras. Help the soul leave. And I'm like, but he's still here. They're like, but he's not. He said, you just need to do this. And so I knew that was the last time I would see him in person. And even though it still was like a few more months after that before he passed, but I couldn't go back because I'm like, it's not my grandfather anymore. It's not him. Anyway, and then when he did pass, so many things shifted. So many family dynamics shifted. Like, weird rifts were healed and all these sorts of things. But even to the point, there's a whole other story around the funeral that's a funny story. But it's funny now. Wasn't funny at the time. But there's like all these sorts of things that, there's all these beliefs that are just constraining us to think that once someone goes, we are so disconnected, but we're actually the most connected we can ever be.
Yes. So true. I have to share something with you that a really key piece that you brought up. The day that you had the dream and that you did your ritual or you did what you were called to do, and he was happy that day, that is profound. Because we recently put down one of our beloved dogs that he was with us for 10 years. And he had been telling me for months that it was time. And I, of course, didn't listen because I was very attached to my beautiful guy, little boy, he's a little guy. And I just couldn't, I just couldn't. And then one day in a dream, he told me, and I woke up and I said, okay, this is what we have to do. And he was getting super angry and aggressive and fighting with the other dog. It was like he made it super clear, okay? And I didn't want to listen. So when I woke up and I realized it, and then he told me exactly what he needed from me that week. He wanted me to sleep with him every day. He wanted me to give him certain attention, certain food. So it was like, and once I then started telling my girls, and I told my husband, this is what we have to do, and this is how we have to do it. We have to have someone come to the home. We have to do it this way. This is what he wants. This is the humane way to do it, right? And once we all were on board and we all got past the hard part, the heartbreaking part of saying yes to doing this, just like Grandpa, he smiled at us and he had such a good day. And he was just like, I could feel the thank you, thank you, thank you. We liberated him in some way. And then a couple of days after, we put him down in a beautiful, loving, in our home with all of us around him. And it was like so beautiful, how it happened. But it was because I listened. I didn't let because all what we were struggling with is the vet was putting this into a human experience. Give him these drugs, do these things. He can last 3 more years or whatever if you give him these shots and you do all this stuff. And I'm like, why are we putting a human experience on this? Let me connect it to the animal kingdom. Let me connect into the dog realm of really what's happening. And I needed support from my girlfriends, so some are very powerful spiritual beings that had to remind me, dogs don't hold like humans do, right? And so when I woke up to, why am I putting my lens on it instead of tapping into his heart and what he needs? And the exact same thing happens on a human level, like you did with Grandpa. You went right to his heart. You went right to what really he wanted versus that experience that we try to put on things, especially death. But we have to get over our own shit to do it. That's the problem.
100%. 100%. Your beautiful little dog, that was the lesson he came here to teach you.
Yeah.
About listening to someone else's needs in that moment rather than doing your own.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because when I was studying as a student, as a speech therapist, we were working in, like, you have to do an adult stint. I worked mainly with children in my career, but you have to do an adult stint. And the argument was always, if you had someone that couldn't swallow fluid without aspirating it, so getting ammonia and things from it, do you, when they're on their deathbed, fight with them about having thickened fluid as their tea, or do you just let them have their damn cup of tea? And I was like, let them have their tea. For goodness sake, let them have their tea. And this is, what does it matter? Why not?
What does it matter?
The joy at the end rather than drinking this stuff that's like thickened jelly and not being able to enjoy something that you've loved every day for, 90 something years or whatever it may be. So again, it's how to kind of do that from an ethical point of view as a therapist, but at the same time, it's from a human point of view. It's like, well, why not? Why not just let it have it? Yeah, 100%.
Real quick, the vet, I remember when she came to the house, she's like, we're going to feed him chocolate. And you can't, like, chocolate is deathly to a dog. She said, let him have that joy. He loved it so much that we gave him 2 chocolates. In the US, it's Reese's peanut butter cups. Like, we had the chocolate with peanut, and he was so happy. He had like chocolate all over his face. But again, the same thing. Like, why not just let him have it? Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as we start to finish our time together, Stacy, I asked the guests that come on the show, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
I think that one of the biggest pieces right now is really understanding our lens, because when we can understand that we carry our one perspective And we understand that so much more is possible, that if we can see beyond our perspective in the sense of having trust and faith that nothing is impossible and that we set our limitations with our perspectives, I think that would be a game changer for all of us. We'd have peace. We wouldn't be separate, all the things. So I would say that for right now, just the way the energies are right now, that's what I'm going to focus on. Yeah.
100%. And stay neutral. I know we were talking about this before the show.
Yes, that is such a huge one, because then we're in our lens, right? But if we can stay neutral and understand that everyone has their own lens, that's a really good point.
Yeah. And if people want to come find you, Stacy, or find out more about your work, where can they go?
Yeah. So I am part of a collective of other amazing healers that we do all different kinds of multidimensional energy work. And you can find me and the others at Lightbody Academy. So you just Google lightbodyacademy.com or whatever, put it in your search. And Lightbody Global Academy on Instagram is a good place to look as well.
Beautiful. And I'll make sure to pop all those details in the show notes. So thank you, Stacy, for your insights into ancestral healing, for the fun discussions, but also the importance of death rights, because I feel that's something that keeps coming up again and again for people.
It does.
And being aware that you can still connect to your ancestors even after they're gone.
Yes, so true.
Thank you.
Yeah. My virtual obsession, my romantic thriller, is now available on Amazon and other online retailers. This book explores the intersection of loneliness, love, and how chasing perfection through technology can lead to fantasy and reality colliding. My virtual obsession out now.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.